Hey guys, Matt Bishop here. I am down here in Atlantic City, and we are getting ready for a big show tonight. I am here with none other than Mr. Richard Patrick of Filter.
How are you?
Dude, how is the tour going so far?
It's great. Doing our bombastic, emotionally driven rock and roll music. It's always fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You have been in this business for a long time, my friend. You started out back in the day touring with 9 Inch Nails on the Pretty Hate Machine tour. What was that like, kind of getting started into the music business with Trent Renzer and the 9 Inch Nails guys?
It was actually a lot of fun. I mean, we really weren't sure what was going to happen with it. It was this, it was kind of like, hey, come on tour with me for a couple months, and then it turned into like a couple years. And I had a lot of fun. I remember we did this tour called, what was the first Lollapalooza, and the highlight of that tour was just going down and watching the Jane's Addiction set every night. So it was that was probably the highlight of my involvement with 9 Inch Nails. I had a lot of fun. Trent's a great guy. He's a hell of a musician and a songwriter, and I got a lot out of it. And then when I did Filter, that was kind of the birth of like my career, really, because the other thing, 9 Inch Nails was more like, play some songs and jump around on stage and perform, and Filter was actually creatively something that began like my whole real musical career. So
when you transitioned into your band Filter, would you say that, NIN and Jane's Addiction, these bands that you toured with and saw live a lot, were they kind of a pretty main inspiration for the music that you write with Filter?
I think the main inspiration for like Filter was I would have to say somewhere along the lines of like Ministry. Because Trent and I were both in like ridiculously goofy bands. He was in this band called the Exotic Birds, and I was in this band called the Act. And then the Land of Rape and Honey came out, and he had told me about Ministry before, but the Land of Rape and Honey came out, and it was just like, we're gonna be the band that crosses over and makes industrial kind of mainstream. So he applied songwriting to this really kind of avant-garde music style, and so that in itself was a big inspiration, because our first record really didn't even have drums. Short Bus didn't have drums, and it was primarily because we were like, well, Ministry never had drums, so
worked for them.
Yeah, but then it turned into more of a band situation, and that's when we started fleshing it out like a band. But on this new record, Gurney, I think that we're going back to more of the program stuff, just for the sake of flexing the creative muscles that we have. We can kind of do that. In this band, we've gone between being extremely computer driven to extremely rock and roll driven, and I think that now that our sound has been established for 15 years, we can kind of do whatever we want. So it's always exciting to go back and work on a new record, and this new record's coming out in like somewhere around July or August, and it's going to be produced by Bob Marlette, and we're calling it right now Gurney in the Burning Books, but I think it's going to be just Gurney by the end of the day. So by the end of the
short and sweet.
Short and sweet, just like Short Bus,
Nice.
Yeah.
Would you guys say that you're going to be experimenting a little bit on this record? Like you said, you guys are established and everybody kind of knows what you guys are all about. It gives you guys room to, be experimental and do things of that nature.
Well, I think that the big experiment is working with a guy named Johnny Radke. But I think we're going to stay... I mean, it's such a wide variety of what we're allowed to do. I mean, Take a Picture was probably one of our biggest hits, and it was such a a left turn from, Hey Man, Nice Shot. So anything kind of in that world, I think is okay. And we set out to write like, okay, this song is going to be like Hey Man, Nice Shot. Like it's called Take That Knife Out of My Back. And then there's another song called First You Break It, which really sounds like something off the title of record. But that one has drum machines. So I think that I'm kind of enjoying Filter, and I think Johnny's he feels like he's kind of finally allowed to like do something that he's wanted to do, because he's always been a fan of Filter, and so he's exploring all the different creative boundaries that we've set, and I think that's what's making this record fresh and new, but at the same time very we're focusing on the heritage as well. So
when you look back on Filter's career and back in the period between like 95 and 05, it was the alt-rock new metal movement, Family Values tour, Short Bus and Title of Record were just monster albums. And then you kind of look at the way the genre has transitioned. What do you think about the landscape now compared to what it was when you guys kind of first broke onto the scene and exploded?
Well, I just met a guy named Pete, who is the singer for the Black Keys. And apparently this band is playing arenas. And I've heard one song of theirs, and I would have never have known that band. I mean, I literally, I kind of, I pay attention to what's going on in music, but I mean, I heard an interview with Sonny from Skrillex, and he was just kind of saying that he never really wanted to be huge or anything. He was just kind of doing his music, and I think that's kind of I think that once you kind of realize, like, I'm not one to go to concerts. Like sometimes I went to the last concert I went to was The Wall by Roger Waters, and it was like that to me was like something that I completely enjoy. But like the last concert I've been to, like it to me it's like if I'm not actually in the concert, then why show up to the concerts? I don't know if it's the word jaded or whatever, but like I'm so consumed by my own music and trying to make that the best it can be, that I don't have a lot of time to listen to music or enjoy music as much as I probably should. But I don't know, I listen to music, and I either like it or I just kind of goes by the wayside. So I'm excited to listen to the Black Keys, and I'm hearing it, and I'm like, well, that's just rhythm and blues from with a 70s production on it. And I think it's interesting that this generation, their generation, has never really explored that, whereas when I grew up, you had the Rolling Stones and Tattoo You and records like that, Made in the Shade, were at my, like, that's what I grew up with. And maybe that generation hasn't really heard this. So it's like when Prince came out, like back in 1990 or 1983, I remember being a kid and some guy at a music store goes, yeah, Prince, it's just like James Brown. It's exactly like James Brown, except he's young, and that's the thing. And same thing with like Green Day. Green Day is essentially a punk rock band. Well, when I think of punk rock, I think of like the Sex Pistols and
the Ramones and all that noise. Yep.
I don't think of Green Day, and you know what I mean. A Green Day is kind of like this little pop version of what punk rock was all about. Punk rock was not about having radio hits and selling 12 million records. Punk rock was about fuck you. We're gonna take over this place and destroy the culture and destroy government and it's anarchy, and it's about all that. So when I kind of see like the genre being capitalized on and exploited, then I'm a little turned off. And I mean, I think Green Day's, you know, having said that, Green Day's written some great songs and they're good and stuff like that. But I also kind of know that, like, if you're going to exploit a genre 20 years after the fact and you're just kind of recycling it, and you know you know what I mean, to me that's not very original. It's just kind of it's just
recycled. Yeah, been there, done that, and just our spin on it.
And yeah, so I don't know. I don't mean to be mean. I just
no, it's your opinion.